All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Monday, September 15th, 2025, Missile Monday. And I have this article from South China Morning Post, and it says how China's DF-5C nuclear ICBM can reach anywhere at any time. So I'm just going to go into this article and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And, I'm not going to read the whole thing. We'll leave the link in the description box, once it's posted. But, just read some of it, and then bring out the script. So again, Lord willing, it is as edifying. So it says the showstopper of China's military parade in Beijing last week was a liquid fuel intercontinental strategic nuclear missile known as the DF-5C, as the new system was unveiled on 3 heavy lift transport vehicles. The official commentary emphasized that it was always on alert and capable of striking anywhere in the world. Liquid fuel rockets have a long range, but they take time to fuel and cannot be stored for long periods after fueling, unlike solid fuel missiles such as America's Minuteman III. But military experts say the DF-5C has made progress in these areas. Its rocket nozzles are apparently protected by membrane-like materials, an upgrade from its predecessor, the DF-5B, suggesting a leap forward in fuel storage technology that allows the missile to stand for long periods of time in a silo, ready to launch anytime, said a defense expert in Beijing who requested anonymity, Slakia if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but to remain anonymous due to the sensitivity of the issue. In the past, some in Washington had to give China's nuclear deterrence capabilities the benefit of the doubt, he said. The close-up shots of the DF-5C during this military parade appear to have been specifically provided to dispel that doubt. The main advantage of liquid fuel missiles is their long-range payloads. For the same volume, they can carry more fuel, heavier warheads, or multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles than solid fuel missiles. But traditional liquid propellants are highly unstable. For example, nitrogen tetroxide and unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine are extremely toxic and corrosive, while liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen are highly volatile at room temperature. The fueling process is also complex and hazardous. Hydrazine-based fuels and nitrogen tetroxide are not only toxic, but also prone to leakage, posing serious environmental and safety risks. Liquid oxygen must be stored at minus 180 degrees Celsius, minus 292 degrees Fahrenheit, and liquid hydrogen must be at even lower 250 degrees, minus 250 degrees Celsius, minus 418 degrees Fahrenheit. These extreme temperatures can make metal materials brittle, and the vaporization of these fuels at room temperature can cause dangerous pressure buildup in storage tanks. Even a small leak of hydrogen can mix with the air to form a highly explosive mixture. Due to these risks, volatility, flammability, and potential leakage, liquid fuel missiles are typically stored with empty fuel tanks. Propellants are loaded only shortly before launch, a time-consuming process that increases preparation time, raises the risk of detection by satellite surveillance, and slows strategic response. To ensure real-time responsiveness, solid fuel missiles have traditionally been preferred. They offer both launch-on-demand capability and high mobility, making them suitable for rapid response to nuclear threats. That is believed to be the case for Slovakia. Says that is believed to be the case with the DF-61 intercontinental ballistic missile, which was also unveiled at the parade. And, this is all I'm going to read. Again, I'm going to link this in the description box. But as you can clearly see, man, China, yet again, they're coming up with more nukes, man. This current one, the DF-5C, which is, a liquid fuel missile. Because, again, like I said, man, most of the missiles that are on the earth today, are solid fuel, but just like it says, man, these liquid fuel, nukes have an advantage over solid fuel because they can travel, farther distances, and pretty much, that article said what it said, and it's serious, man. That nuke can hit anywhere in the world. There's no telling how many times that nuke can literally, circle the entire earth, in a certain amount of time before hitting its target. And I'm just using that as an example because, again, these missiles are going to be traveling extremely fast, So, again, it may be able to take a trip around the earth a couple of times, But, again, like I said, it can strike anywhere. But what's the primary target? America, a.k.a. Babylon the Great. That's the target, man. So they're making sure that they're building up these nukes. They're going to reach Babylon, in which they are, So I'm just, I'm going to not make this one long, just hit the main points, and then that'll be it. So I'm going to start with the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, and verse 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy." And right, man, what is a smith? A smith, meaning a blacksmith, is one that creates weapons, and not just any weapons of war, because that's what a blacksmith will do. And these modern day smiths will be the scientists and physicists that are behind, developing and creating these weapons, man. Because these aren't just any regular weapons of war. These are weapons of mass destruction, because these nukes that are on the earth today literally have the capability of, Slovakia. These nukes literally have the capability of destroying the earth, But as it says in the scriptures, the earth abideth forever. So the planet Earth won't be destroyed, man, but it will be shaken, by these weapons. And the waster to destroy, is going into the missile itself, because that's the Lord's instrument. These are the Lord's weapons, Yes, Esau, Edom's blessing is the sword, pursuant to Genesis 27:40, but ultimately these nuclear missiles are the Lord's weapons, He's given Esau, Edom, this technology ultimately to take himself out, on a small scale, because as we know, on a much grander scale, the Lord Yahweh Shai, along with the angels, are going to destroy Babylon, So I'm going to get the book of Joel, chapter 3, and verse 9, and it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong and right, man." 70, 80 years ago, China didn't have this technology, and I'm not sure exactly when China started to develop, develop their own missiles. It may have been in the 90s, if not the 90s, maybe the 70s or 80s. But either way it goes, America was the only nation that possessed this technology, next to Russia. No other country wanted to go to war with America because they didn't have, these nuclear capabilities. Now you have these different, nations that also possess, nuclear missiles, ICBMs, SLBMs, they have the same technology. So, they're not afraid, man, And again, they're exhausting their resources into, funding their war or funding, their military to get ready for this war. Hence the reason, or it's likely not the reason, but hence the saying, guns and butter, which again, I'm still going to do a lesson on that, Lord willing, but let's just get a little bit of it, right? So just the basic. So it says, the phrase guns and butter is an economic motto or metaphor used to describe the trade-off a nation faces between allocating resources for military spending, guns, and civilian goods, butter. And that's what you have today, So again, just to break down, guns would be defense spending, military equipment, war efforts, security, right? Butter, consumer goods, food, healthcare, housing, education, infrastructure. And clearly, this is what America is investing in: their guns, their defense system, building up these nuclear defense system, putting money towards the military, developing more nukes, Meanwhile, again, butter, all of those things, it's suffering, man. Consumer goods, the price of everything is going up. The price of food is going up, healthcare. People, are losing healthcare. Housing, the housing market is, crazy. Education, let's not even get started. And the infrastructure, man, the infrastructure here in America is failing, So again, that's the trade-off, man. So right now America's putting its resources into its military, and not just America, all of these other nations, that are going to be involved in this third world war. They're investing their money in their guns, so guns and butter, man, because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, as far as this current world that we live in, in these nations, because we're in a time of war. So it only makes sense for, these different nations to put, the majority of their resources toward their military, toward, their security, so to speak, And then we're in very serious times, man. And we're in very, very serious times. So I'm going to get the book of Malachi, chapter 4, and verse 1. And it says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." And right, man, that's the day that's coming. World War III, Because again, it's not going to be a traditional war like how traditional warfare was fought, you know. So coming back to the book of Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 5, and it says, "For every battle of the warriors with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire," right, man? This coming third world war is it going to be like traditional warfare where, you know, you had men on one side of the battlefield, you know, and a group of men on the other side of the battlefield having, you know, different weapons of war, you know, charging each other in the center, you know, that confused noise, you know, men letting out that battle cry, you know, swords hitting shields, swords hitting other swords, you know, just a confused noise, man, literally the sound of war, you know. But just like it says, this shall be with burning and fuel of fire, because how is World War III primarily going to be fought? With these ICBMs, you know, these intercontinental ballistic missiles, you know. And just like I always have to make mention that you will have ground troops that are going to be going to war with each other. But again, World War III is primarily going to be fought with these nukes, you know. So I'm going to get the book of Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 4. And it says, "The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land." So right, man, these nukes are going to make a very loud noise. You're going to hear them coming. You know, you're going to hear that rocket propulsion system guiding them to their target. And what is their target? Babylon. And who is Babylon the Great today? America. You know, it's prophesied that America is going to go out by fire, and that's what's going to happen. You know, and this is what we're witnessing take place. You know, the beginning of the end of this place, if you will, even though we already know the end has already started as far as Babylon collapsing, but this third world war, we know that is near, you know, is near, because again, these are the Lord's weapons, and this is, you know, the Lord's determination. This is the Lord's determination, man, to destroy this place. And it's like it also said in that Joel, the 3rd chapter, you know, his determination is to gather the nations, you know, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is over there in the region of Saudi Arabia, because that's where, you know, these different nations are going to be fighting each other, you know. But the Lord is going to destroy them all, you know. And just like it says, to destroy the whole land, the entire land mass of America is going to be destroyed, man. And just like it said in that Malachi, you know, the 4th chapter, verse 1, you know, it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So obviously anything that Esau has built up in this place, you know, it won't be here, man. All of it is going to be burnt up. You know, nothing will be left, you know. So I'm going to end it with this. This is the book of Joel, chapter 2, and verse 1. And it says, "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand." And what is the day of the Lord? World War III. You know, this coming third world war. That day that shall burn as an oven. This is what's coming, man. That's the day of the Lord. You know, when this great destruction takes place. You know. Verse 2, "A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations." And right, you know, Joel and Isaiah seen the same thing. They seen, you know, the missiles. You know, they heard that noise, man. They both seen, you know, these nukes flying. You know, that's that great noise, man. And that's that, you know, that great people and the strong, man. These nukes flying. because all of these nukes that are on the earth today are going to be used. None of them will be spared, because once after this war takes place, there won't be any more use for them. Why? Because the nations aren't going to learn war anymore, pursuant to, Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3. And it says, a fire shall devour before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them. And right, man, it says a fire shall devour before them, because again, these nukes, or the warheads in particular, are going to be traveling so fast that they're going to be on fire. They're going to be traveling at Mach speeds, so again, they're going to be on fire because they're going to be traveling so fast. That's that fire that devours before them, and the flame, that burns behind them, that's that rocket propulsion system that they're going to be guiding these missiles, the warheads in particular, to hit their targets, and it says the land is as the Garden of Eden, and we know for a fact that America, the infrastructure of this place is failing. These cities are trash, but it's still certain places, that you can go in this land, and the landscape is beautiful. It is. But just like it says, behind them a desolate wilderness. So once these nukes detonate, excuse me, here in America, it's gonna take this. It's like it. Excuse me. It's like you. It's gonna make this place completely desolate, man. It's gonna turn into a desert. Because these flames, not the flames, but these nukes are gonna burn extremely hot, man. So it's gonna melt everything. They're gonna burn hotter than the sun. So thus turning this place into a desolate wilderness, and that's what America, aka Babylon the Great, is gonna become, after it's destroyed. Because like it says in Revelation, the 18th chapter, it's only gonna take the Lord 1 hour to destroy this place, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Kodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.